So that joining us right now on College Green, outside the House of the Parliament, is Shadow Justice Secretary, Conservative MP, Robert Jenrick. A very good morning to you, Robert.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Lots to talk about, a lot of it involving David Lammy. First up, though, can I ask you about our good friend, Rachel Reeves, who, against all our better judgment, is still the Chancellor of the Exchequer today, despite the boss of the Office for Budget Responsibility being forced out after the, clown country, banana republic level mess up by the OBR, accidentally putting up without any password protection that was meaningful the budget a couple of hours before they were supposed to put it up on last Wednesday's budget day. He's gone. There was a technical mess up. It was incompetence. She, we're pretty sure, deliberately lied about what was going to be in the budget. How come he's gone and she's still in a job?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Julia. It was correct for Richard Hughes to step down. He's done the right thing. But why the heck is Rachel Reeves still in a job? Surely tanking the economy, breaking all your promises, potential market manipulation and flagrantly misleading the public, including in press conferences at number 10 Downing Street, is more serious than accidentally releasing a budget document online a couple of hours too early.
And especially when we've seen most of the budget
before,
before
get a backbone
anyway.
And get rid of her.
Well, it does. A lot of people are saying...
Well, we knew everything that was in the budget anyway.
Indeed. A lot of people are saying that basically the Prime Minister can't get rid of her because he also knew that the OBR had told her that actually there wasn't this big black hole. She said it very publicly. He's now, basically gone on record completely backing her, arms around her, very supportive. Basically, if she goes, he'd have to go too. Is he keeping her as basically a shield?
Totally. Look, Prime Ministers know everything that goes in the budget. Their Chancellors sit in the Cabinet room and talk them through all of the details. So the idea that Reeves knew this but Starmer didn't is for the birds. The two of them are in this together, up to their necks. If she goes, he goes. And to be honest, the sooner the better.
Well, we shall wait and see if that happens. Many saying might have to wait until after the local elections next May. Well, let's talk about something more specific to your brief as Shadow Justice Secretary, and that is the announcement we're expecting the Commons today from the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, about scrapping jury trials. Now, last week we got a leak of a memo which suggested he was looking at scrapping jury trials for pretty much anyone going to court, unless they were being accused of the most serious crimes, murder, manslaughter, rape and a few others. But we're now told it's watered down. From what we know so far from his interviews today, what are we looking at?
Well, look, Julia, we laugh at Calamity Lammy, that he's the court jester of this terrible government, but actually this is very serious. This is dangerous. The erosion of more than 800 years of our rights, going back to Magna Carta, in fact, before that. It means that in almost every case, serious cases will be being decided by judges alone and not by juries. David Lammy has been out touring the media today claiming that this will just be cases like someone nicking a Mars bar, but that's complete rubbish. It includes terrorist offences, coercive control, sexual offences, very serious crimes. And my view is that if you get accused of those things, it is your right, and has been for generations, to go before a jury and have 12 ordinary Brits decide your fate, not a so-called educated judge alone. At the heart of this is the fact that Labour do not trust ordinary people to be at the heart of our criminal justice system and to make these absolutely critical decisions about their fellow citizens.
I think you're right. I think this ties in massively with that general view of we call the lanyard classes, that if only you put the technocrats in charge and the clever people in charge, and don't let people vote for things like Brexit or anything silly like that, and you just have the clever educated people in charge, then things will be much better. And that view goes to juries. But is there any evidence, and you've been Shadow Justice Secretary for a while, is there any evidence that juries are unable to understand cases? I mean, there are some epic, 2-year-long fraud cases where forensic accountants struggle, but maybe there are some tiny examples like that. But in the case of a murder or a manslaughter or a rape, surely the whole point of it is 2012, ordinary people just like you who are deciding on your guilt or your innocence.
Yes, that's right. And it's an incredibly important safeguard as well, that firstly, the art of barristers is to distill even complex cases into simple terms so that everyone, the defendant, the victim, members of the public, can understand what's going on and what is at stake in the case. It's not simply something so complex and erudite that only judges and legal experts can comprehend. And secondly, it provides a safety valve so that judges, ordinary people, can step in the tiny number of cases where something completely perverse would be happening. I'll give you an example from the events immediately after the Southport attacks. 2 people, very prominently, were before the courts. One was called Jamie Michael, a veteran, who posted something on social media that was wrong, and no doubt he regretted it afterwards. But he went before a jury, and they said that this was a man of previous good character who'd put his life on the line for his country, and they acquitted him. Another, Lucy Connolly, also did something wrong, a reprehensible tweet. She didn't go before a jury, and a judge found her guilty and ultimately sentenced her
But she
to
pleaded
31
guilty.
months in
She
prison.
pleaded guilty.
She pleaded guilty, but we can only ask, if she'd gone before a jury, would they have found her guilty? I suspect they wouldn't have done.
I absolutely agree with you.
That is an important safeguard, a safety valve that exists in our system, and which for generations people have said is an important part of our system. And also, as you say, there's no evidence that juries are incapable. In fact, ironically, David Lammy himself wrote a report not so long ago, the David Lammy report, one of the conclusions of which was that juries are actually better placed at coming up with fair and equitable decisions, including decisions which avoid bias and discrimination against people from black and ethnic minority backgrounds.
Yeah, and indeed, and this is one of the key things, is we know that most judges are basically white, posh men, and therefore not representative. Now, I'm of the view that most judges may well be able to take that aspect of them out when they're making a judgment out of their considerations. But how do we know that? And especially with the concern about politicised judges, especially given now, you don't get appointed as a judge unless you toe the line on certain politically correct issues, and that is going to impact their careers if they don't on some of these cases. Crucial thing here is David Lammy is justifying whatever change there's going to be, and it looks like it's going to be more limited than the memo that was leaked last week. Getting rid of, for instance, he was suggesting in interviews today, those either way cases where so it's not either automatically tried in the magistrate court or automatically tried in the Crown Court, but numerous cases where it's kind of in between, and where, you can choose to go to the court. You may well then get off, but you also may face a longer sentence, or you could be tried in the magistrate court. He's saying getting rid of those. But again, someone who's good character or their future career rests on that innocent verdict may well feel very strongly about wanting to go to a jury, will no longer have that right. His claim is that we've got massive delays in the justice system, that people, if you're a victim of rape, your women are waiting 4 or 5 years for justice. I sat on a jury a couple of years ago. It was a 3-year-old case then. We've had delays before COVID, exacerbated by COVID. Is there any evidence that it is jury trials that are creating those delays?
No, not much, anyway. The report that David Lammy, or his predecessor, commissioned by Sir Brian Leveson, concludes that jury trials make a very modest impact. Maybe a jury trial is at best 20% longer than a judge-led trial. So this is going to make a small difference to the problem, and with a big cost, the erosion of an ancient liberty in our country. The truth is, we've got to get the courts sitting more often than they are today. In fact, if all the courts had been sitting in our country over the course of the last year, then the backlog would have gone down by 5,000 to 10,000 cases, when in fact it's gone up during that period. This morning there will be courtrooms sat empty the length and breadth of the country. That's what we've got to fix, and the myriad of other inefficiencies in this old-fashioned paper-based system, rather than going for what David Lammy thinks is the easy lever, which is scrapping an ancient liberty. With very little evidence this is going to make the difference that he hopes. But
isn't the backlog something in the region of 80,000 cases? And let's face it, a lot of this happened under the Tory watch. You weren't Justice Secretary, fair enough, but it happened under the Tory watch. Massive underinvestment in the criminal justice system. Criminal justice can't do it on the cheap if you want to do it fairly.
I think that's right. And look, don't get me wrong, it's frankly shameful that a woman could be raped right now and her accused, her perpetrator, wouldn't come to court till maybe 2030. That's a disgrace, and we've got to fix that. But this isn't the answer. The answer is investing more in the criminal justice system, as you rightly say, fixing the problems of the criminal bar, which is on its knees at the moment, getting this old-fashioned system back up to speed with a better run court system. But we don't need to scrap something that has existed in our country since at least Magna Carta. That is a real crying shame. And David Lammy just needs to trust ordinary people and do the hard yards of governing this country. And frankly, if it is about money, well, Rachel Reeves has found £16 billion for benefits last week. Most people in this country would rather a bit more money was spent on our criminal justice system than on benefits and illegal migrants.
Well, hear to that. I certainly agree to that. Is there any way of stopping this from happening? I mean, look, this wasn't in the Labour manifesto. They have no public mandate for doing this. It's certainly not got support from, as it would appear, judges, the barristers, all the public, even with the massive majority in the Commons. Can this be stopped in the laws? Can it be stopped in any other way?
But we're going to fight this every step of the way. It doesn't have a manifesto commitment behind it, as really important constitutional changes like this should do. And David Lammy, in his own inimitable way, seems to have united everyone in British politics against him and his proposals, from Jeremy Corbyn on one side to myself and Nigel Farage on the other. Only Calamity Lammy is capable of doing this. We're going to fight this, and I hope we can win, as in fact people did in the past when Tony Blair tried to do the same thing 20 years ago, and preserve this right for future generations.
Right, well, let's move on from talking about people who are coming up and being tried and found guilty or innocent to the people who've been found guilty, who've been sent to prison and who are then released. Now, it's been bad enough. We've had a load of prisoners who've been released early because prisons are full, but we've also had prisoners who've been released accidentally. And only a little while ago, we discovered that it had risen from 115 in 23-24 to 262 last year. Justice Secretary has admitted today that 12 more prisoners have been accidentally released in the past 3 weeks, 2 of whom are apparently still at large. What do you say to that?
It's a complete shambles. 3 weeks ago, David Lammy reluctantly came to Parliament and said that as a result of the mistaken releases, he was putting in place the strongest ever checks to prevent this happening, and that he was on the case. What's actually happened? Well, since then, we've now learnt that 12 prisoners have been accidentally released, some of whom he's admitted are dangerous and sexual offenders, and at least 2 of them are still on the run. He won't say who they are, where they are, what efforts the police are doing to try and track these people down. And it's obvious that his interventions have completely failed. Rather than stopping this problem, it's actually got worse. It was that every other day a prisoner was being accidentally released. Now it's more often than that. Everything this man touches seems to turn to ashes, and it's very serious because these dangerous criminals are out on the streets. Their victims will be rightly worried today that they might be coming back to cause more havoc and mayhem in their lives. Lammy has got to get a grip and end this fiasco. Can
we hold him personally responsible? If you were if you were Justice Secretary now instead of Shadow, would you be personally responsible for every prison officer who accidentally releases somebody who's not supposed to be released?
Well, look, he sits atop a big and complex criminal justice system, and you can't hold him to account for absolutely everything, but he did know that this problem was happening because we identified it a month or so ago when these first criminals came to light as being out on the run from Epping and from Wandsworth. Now it's his responsibility to step in and grip this thing, and he clearly isn't doing this. In fact, today it was revealed he hasn't even been to Wandsworth prison, the prison that was in complete chaos. So what is this man doing? He's part-time Justice Secretary, part-time Deputy Prime Minister, swanning around, not fixing the problems that he's responsible for. All the while, the public are actually in danger. So he really needs to step up now and fix this problem once and for all.
Well, at least last week he had an excuse for about 15 minutes when he got trapped in the security system outside the House of Lords when his car was going in and he couldn't actually get out or go backwards and he got stuck. But apparently another bit of an issue with one of his drivers. but you know where David Lammy's history is on that. Anyway, Robert Jenrick, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick there live from College Green outside Parliament. I mean, let's be honest, I mean, let's face it, the way we all talk about Calamity Lammy, I mean, he's really not very good at his job, is it? It's simple as that. Benedict Spence, listening to all of that, just coming back in on the prisoners, because you do sort of wonder, how hard is it? You've got people behind bars and list of people who are supposed to be released on any particular day, people who aren't supposed to be released. I do struggle with how you could accidentally release somebody. I don't really understand how this happens.
I'm not surprised by this at all, though. The actual state of things in our prisons is appalling. Every couple of weeks, we get stories about prison officers, prison guards that have been found to have facilitated criminality in prisons, carrying on, having affairs with prisoners. The number of female officers that work in male prisons absolutely astounds me. Who on earth thought this was a great idea? I know we're all supposed to be all feminist and balanced and women can do any old job, but that would have seemed to me like a really obvious one that shouldn't be done, because it seems to just keep happening. And maybe I'm being a little unfair.
No, not all women prison officers
as
are
I
having
just said,
sex with
as
prisoners.
I just said, maybe I'm being a little unfair to the general amount, but it seems to be happening rather a lot more than it should. It should be zero, and it's several cases this year that I'm aware of alone. And I really wish that I wasn't aware of this sort of thing, but it keeps happening.
I'm going to say that's the least of my worries, opposed to people who are, it could be somebody who's convicted rapist who's on the streets right now.
It shouldn't be the least of your worries at all. If you can actually form an emotional relationship, a sexual relationship with a prisoner, what else would you do for them? Would you bring things in for them? Would you maybe be the person who accidentally releases them because you signed the form?
And what about jury trials?
This is so basic. Okay, now I'm going to be controversial to everybody listening, because everybody's got their own favourite thing. There'll be pensioners listening, there'll be people with children listening, there'll be people with healthcare issues listening. There shouldn't be there shouldn't be a single penny of public money spent on any of those things unless justice is guaranteed. The state has no legitimacy without security, liberty,
securing the borders, securing the law and order on the streets, and justice.
Without those three things, it has no legitimacy.
And you can't do it on the cheap.
You cannot.
It's priceless.
No, and I'm afraid to say, actually, though, as much as you said, and much as Robert Jenrick said, actually, people want money to be spent on this. No, they don't. No, they don't. And that's why George Osborne calculated correctly that he could get away with cutting all of this, because he knew full well people think it's never going to bother me, it's never going to affect me. I'm never going to be a prisoner, so it doesn't matter. I don't want prisoners to have anything. I don't think lawyers should be paid. This doesn't matter to me. Now here we are, where rapists don't go to prison for years at a time. But
also, by the way, people accused of crimes they haven't committed also have it hanging over them for years. Let's also look at that side of things as well. We're going to take